The sheer fury and elation that shook the stadium in the aftermath of the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal was driven by a hostility that had been building for nearly a century. The roots of the tension stretch back to the late 19th century. British sailors and railway workers arriving in Buenos Aires introduced the sport, establishing the first local teams and leagues. For Argentina, mastering the sport became a measure of national capability. There developed a persistent drive to defeat the very people they viewed as the fathers and masters of the game right on their own soil. Football became a proxy battleground. It was the primary arena where Argentine national pride could confront British influence head-on, decades before formal military hostilities broke out. The friction became a formal grudge during the 1966 World Cup quarterfinal at Wembley Stadium in London. In a highly physical match, German referee Rudolf Kreitlein, who spoke no Spanish, sent off Argentine captain Antonio Ratin. Outraged by what he perceived as blatant bias toward the European hosts, Ratin refused to leave quietly, deliberately stamping on the royal carpet as he exited the pitch. Following the match, England manager Alf Ramsey publicly branded the Argentine players as animals. The insult landed heavily in Buenos Aires. It established an enduring resentment, framing every subsequent match between the two nations as an opportunity to reclaim national dignity. 16 years later, the conflict moved from the pitch to the South Atlantic. In 1982, the two nations fought a brief, intense war over the Falkland or Malvinas Islands. This chart displays the human cost of the conflict, beginning with the 285 British service members killed during the fighting. On the Argentine side, the toll was significantly higher, with 659 lives lost before the ceasefire. The war lasted only 10 weeks, but it left deep emotional wounds, creating a militarized lens through which the two populations viewed each other. When the teams were drawn to face each other in the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal, 4 years after the war, the game was widely seen as a chance to settle scores for the recent dead. On June 22, 1986, the teams met at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. Over 114,000 spectators filled the stands for a match defined by the recent war. The responsibility for the match fell to Tunisian referee Ali Ben Nasser and his Bulgarian assistant Bogdan Dachev, who had to officiate a game where every decision carried national consequence. In the 51st minute, Diego Maradona leapt toward a looping clearance and discreetly punched the ball past English goalkeeper Peter Shilton. Ben Nasser was unsighted. Under FIFA guidelines at the time, assistant referees like Dachev were restricted from intervening on penalty area fouls unless it concerned the goal line or offside. The goal stood. Maradona would famously attribute the strike to the hand of God, but his private motivation was political. He later admitted he saw the illegal goal as symbolic revenge for the lives lost in the Malvinas conflict. That unpunished act solidified an Argentine myth of a righteous heist. For many, it was the ultimate victory of a smaller nation using any means available to strike back against an imperial power. Just 4 minutes later, Maradona received the ball in his own half. Over exactly 10 seconds, he tore through the English defense, beating 5 players in a flawless solo run. Referee Ben Nasser recognized the unfolding play. Rather than stopping the action for fouls committed by the desperate English defenders, he applied the advantage rule, allowing the attack to continue. That display of skill secured a 2-1 victory for Argentina, sending them on a path to win the World Cup. In 4 minutes, Maradona had delivered both a blatant foul and a masterpiece. The sequence ensured the rivalry would be remembered as a collision of undeniable talent and unresolved grievance. The pattern of retaliation continued into the 1998 World Cup round of 16. The game provided new moments for the rivalry: a red card for David Beckham, a disallowed winning header from Sol Campbell, and a penalty shootout victory for Argentina. 4 years later, they met in the 2002 World Cup group stage. The midday kickoff caused a nationwide work stoppage in the UK as millions watched the broadcast. They watched David Beckham score the redemption penalty, a result leading to Argentina's early exit. The physical intensity of these matches left its mark, from Beckham's infamous exclusion in 1998 to the literal battle scars of the 2002 encounter. This cycle of sporting retaliation kept the history active. Each new encounter on the pitch ensured the grievances of the previous decades were inherited by the next generation of fans. Yet, decades later, the story concludes with an unexpected shift toward mutual respect between the very people who lived through the peak of the hostility. In 2015, Diego Maradona traveled to Tunisia to visit Ali Ben Nasser, the referee who allowed his most infamous goal to stand. Maradona presented him with a signed jersey inscribed, "To Ali, my eternal friend." Ben Nasser eventually auctioned the 1986 match ball for nearly £2 million, using the proceeds to fund local charities and support his family. It is a quiet postscript, showing that even historically fueled resentment eventually gives way to time. The England-Argentina saga remains a singular timeline where a game held a country's resentments, its tragedies, and eventually a capacity to move past them.